Now to reports of turmoil inside the White House and friction between two key advisors. Sources tell ABC News that after a slew of negative headlines, the president sharply told his feuding team members to, quote, work it out. That apparently led to a sit-down meeting between President Trump's chief strategist, Steve Bannon, and the powerful first son-in-law, Jared Kushner. ABC's David Wright is in Palm Beach near the president's Mar-a-Lago resort. David, good morning.
Good morning, Dan. This may be the most successful weekend yet for the president, a huge moment for an administration that's had more than a few stumbles. And yet, instead of the focus being on the missile strikes, the China summit, or even the swearing in of a new Supreme Court justice, the focus today is on infighting. Sources tell ABC News President Trump was forced to step in to cool down a clash between two of his closest aides, just as he was hosting a summit with China's president and planning the missile strikes in Syria. Trump reportedly confronted his top aides over infighting between chief strategist Steve Bannon and son-in-law and senior advisor Jared Kushner. During the campaign, Kushner and Bannon were allies, but sources tell ABC News their relationship has soured over ideological differences. Kushner pushing closer engagement with the world, Bannon advocating America first. The White House now says the president ordered the two to sit down Friday and work this out so they can move forward on the president's agenda. The meeting brokered by White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. The White House denies any imminent shakeup.
Well, I think we have shaken them up, and I think we've had one of the most successful 13 weeks in the history of presidents.
This past week, Bannon lost his place on the National Security Council, a move approved by the president and endorsed by Kushner. Multiple sources tell ABC News that after that, Bannon threatened to resign. He denies that, though, and calls that absurd. Dan, Paula?
Thank you very much, David. We want to talk more about those relationships right now and bring in our chief anchor, George Stephanopoulos, who will be hosting This Week later this morning. Good morning to you, George. We want to talk about that interview with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in just a moment. But first and foremost, reports that the president told Kushner and Bannon to basically work it out. Is this just normal? Are these just normal growing pains early on in an administration?
All White Houses have some shakeouts in the first several months. I was part of one that did. But here's the difference right now. When you look at the three people who were in that meeting yesterday, Reince Priebus, Steve Bannon, and Jared Kushner, they all three represent three very different sides of Donald Trump, who has not been a man or a candidate of a very fixed ideology. You've got Reince Priebus, the establishment Republican, Steve Bannon, the fiery alt-right nationalist, Jared Kushner is a Democrat and supported Democrats in the past, as Donald Trump has in the past. So the stakes here are very, very high. It's not just a personality clash. It's about the direction of the White House. That's what's different here. He's telling them to work it out. The question is, will they be able to work it out? So as we saw in Alex Marquardt's piece a couple minutes ago, you sat down with the Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. Let's just listen to a little bit more of that interview here. So it sounds like from what you're saying right now, there is no real change in the United States military stance towards Syria from what it was last week.
That's correct, George. This strike, I think the president was very clear in his message to the American people that this strike was related solely to the most recent horrific use of chemical weapons against women, children, and as the president said, even small babies. And we're asking and calling on Bashar al-Assad to cease the use of these weapons. Other than that, there is no change to our military posture.
Okay, so that seems to indicate that we're not going deeper into this.
It's very straightforward. Yeah, no change at all.
But that contradicts, doesn't it, what we're hearing from Nikki Haley, who's talked about regime change?
Well, she says we hope for regime change. The question is, what is the United States prepared to do to get regime change? You know, and that seems to be at issue right now. What is the United States strategy coming out of those targeted military strikes? You saw what Rex Tillerson thinks in that interview right now. No change. We're not getting sucked in to Syria. But the president's rhetoric was quite expansive on Thursday night. He was talking about calling on all civilized nations to come together and end the slaughter in Syria. When you have words like that, it begs the question: what are the actions that are going to follow?
And speaking of that slaughter, it was that really moved President Trump to take the military action, seeing the babies and children gassed. But then he's taken a lot of heat because just months ago he banned these same refugees, these Syrian refugees, from entering our country. So is that policy likely to change?
It doesn't appear to be changing. It doesn't appear to be changing at all. But it does expose a contradiction in the president's policies. Others have pointed out what's the difference between being killed by a barrel bomb versus a chemical weapon. Now, the United States has drawn a line in the past. The world has drawn a line against the use of these weapons of mass destruction like chemical weapons. And President Obama actually faced some criticism for drawing that red line against the use of chemical weapons and then not acting back in 2013. So I think President Trump did get a lot of support for this targeted strike against the use of chemical weapons. But again, there are big questions now about what the strategy is to follow on from that.
There are many good reasons why this has been called the problem from hell. George, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. A reminder, George has a big show this morning. You're going to hear more of his one-on-one with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Plus, he's going to talk with Senator Marco Rubio and the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Adam Schiff, about what's next in Syria. It's all coming up on This Week later this morning right here on ABC.